Okay.
Hey, Patrick, we're going live any second now. Who do you want to do a shout out to?
I would love to say hello and greetings and live long and prosper to my ancient alien community and all the people out there that believe that the truth is out there.
All right, Ancient Alien Community and Truth Out There Seekers X Files. Here we go. Super fun show today, guys. We're talking with Patrick Henry. He's the author of The Wasp. It's a sci-fi fictional history about a squadron of female fighter pilots based on a true alien theory and historical fact. He's sharing his insights on ancient aliens and how they've helped mankind. Welcome back to the show, Patrick. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good morning, and thanks for having me again. I'm super excited. This is one of my favorite subjects of all time.
This is one of my favorite subjects. I don't know enough about it. I usually talk about it in the realm of sci-fi. But today we're going from sci-fi to real-fi.
Real-fi. I mean, where did we begin? I mean, in the beginning there was man. Yeah, but actually it does start way back then. I went to, let me tell you how I got into ancient aliens and the ancient alien theory, because it's kind of strange. I was always a sky watcher. I loved looking at stars, and when I was a child, and I lived across the street from an elementary school, so I'd go out and look at stars all the time, and I would see satellites moving and things like that, and I would see things that were not satellites. I'm like, what is that? And it was just my little 4 or 5 year old mind. Back in the 80s, we were free roam kids, so we got to go outside at 9 and 10 o'clock at night. Parents didn't give a damn. But to my advantage, I started to, E.T. came out at that time, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out at that time. And, I used to put up mashed potatoes all the time. I'm like, this means something. And I would make those, and they struck me. And the Time Life books were huge, coming out. And the Stonehenge just called to me. But my mom was hardcore Catholic. Like, you're a sinner type of Catholic for believing in those things. I'm like, well, Mom, this stuff just, how? Like, what's up with the pyramids, And I was always like, how? Why? What is this? Like, why do these things exist? And so they put me in Catholic school. I asked too many questions. You're going to Catholic school. So, but, the thing about Catholic school is that they teach you have a religion class, but then you have a science class, right after. And so the two just butt heads and contradict, and then, we're learning about, the Amazon tribes that don't have any contact with people, because of the laws that we've enacted. But then, they're all going to go to hell because they haven't heard of Jesus Christ. And that to me was like, hey, and so I was an altar boy as well. So I was involved in the church. So I asked my priest at the time, I'm like, this doesn't jive well with me. Like, how does this medicine man who's doing well, who's doing everything, and he's not allowed to hear the word of God, he's going to burn in hell forever, because of us, just isn't is too. And so he sat me down, like, and his name was Father Patrick as well. So God is like ice cream. There's 31 flavors, and as long as you got a flavor and you're eating your ice cream, that's all he cares about.
Can I tell you, I actually had that same question when I was younger too. It's like, how are all these people who don't live in the U.S. going to go to heaven? Like, they don't have a chance. Sorry about you guys.
Yeah, it just didn't make any sense to me. And then, like, the myths in Catholic religion, like the burning bush. I was like, how come that doesn't happen anymore? How come I'm not randomly hearing about it on the news that another burning bush gave a message of something today? It hasn't happened in forever. I'm like, what are these things that, and I'm Native American, and the Hopi Indian, believe in the ant people, are the people who helped start civilization. And then going back even more, it's like we have Noah's Ark story, the flooding, the Great Flood. That's, and there's usually a Great Flood myth in most religions. And it's like, what is that about? Like, why is that same story carried out through all different religions throughout time? Like, that must have happened at some point in our history. And we're finding facts of, we're finding the layers of, like, okay, this is the time the flood happened. So we know it did happen. Where's all that? And then before it was Noah's Ark and Noah's flood, it was the Epic of Gilgamesh, in the ancient Sumerian religion, and to me, that's the beta religion. That's the first known religion to mankind, the ancient Sumerian. And to me, that's the most sci-fi, trippy movie story ever. Are you familiar with the Sumerian legend?
The only reason I know that legend is because of Jean-Luc Picard, by the way,
Oh,
with
really?
and Kidu.
Nice.
Because
And that's one of those things too, where like
yeah.
I'm going to talk to you about that and Hollywood and how Hollywood and aliens interact. But to that exact point, you know, the Anunnaki, which is the same name, ancient Sumerian, the same name that the ancient Hopi Indians call the ant people, Anunnaki. They came to Earth because they needed to mine gold because their technology had polluted their atmosphere and they needed this gold to help preserve their world. But when they came here, they're like, we're not going to do this manual labor. We've got these monkey type creatures. We can genetically modify them in our image, and which is where that phrase comes from, and have them mine the gold for us, and we'll teach them some things, and it'll be a tit for tat type of thing. And it's one of those things where if you look at humankind, you know, it's weird how much we lust after gold. We have an uncontrollable lust for gold. You know, people will kill each other over gold. You know, we got gold fever, you know, and gold has been central to our whole existence as humans. And we're still so important today. And it's one of those things that they came here to mine gold, you know, and when we started to worship them as gods, they kind of got like, you know, oh, that's kind of weird. We'll come back when you guys have evolved enough to realize that it's science, not God.
Okay,
And
so here's what we got to talk about.
uh-huh.
We've got, you know, I've talked to a lot of people on the show. I've talked to witches. I've talked to people in various religions. I've talked to healers, and I will say that from talking to you before about aliens, just to be in the green room stuff, there is overlap between aliens and various religions. That we have,
Yes.
that I've seen from talking to everybody, where people are going to look at this and go like, okay, we're crazy talking about aliens. There are no aliens. There's no such thing. Prove to me that there's aliens. We're not asking you to prove to God, but prove that there's an alien.
I mean, geez. I mean, just man's existence in itself is like, what's up with that? I mean, if you've ever had a child, how does a infant take care of itself without some sort of help for the first 5 years? They're completely useless, you know. And it's like, but to me, that was another thing. And when I was in elementary, you know, it was like Adam and Eve made sense because you needed adults to take care of a baby, you know. But like making them out of mud doesn't really make sense because how come we can't do that still? But is a metaphor for growing from amoebas and, you know, genetic manipulation to get to where we are now.
Okay.
I think that our whole existence on this planet, I have theories. I have some theories. One, I think Earth is unique in itself, that it's a more of a preserve than it is a planet, which is the reason why we have the redwood forests, you know, trees that are for some reason older than the Earth itself. How does that happen? You know, it's like the carbon dating just doesn't fit the makeup of the Earth. It's just like the banana. You know, there's no genetic, you know, the banana didn't come from anywhere. It just was the most perfect fruit that just appeared, you know, out of nowhere. You know, the same thing with the octopus, you know, and all these things that are so unique to our planet that don't exist. I mean, there's a beetle that shoots hot lava from its butt. You know, it's like, how does that evolve without exploding itself? You know, like how does that get to that stage if it wasn't created first, you know, made perfectly as it was? And then it's like, okay, here, go, you crazy little fire shooting bug. And it's one of those things where the miracles are all around us. Those miracles are, I think, part of what make Earth so unique and why we continue to have visitation from not only other alien species, but the future selves.
Gotcha.
Our future selves are coming back to look at us.
It's very alien. The octopus is an amazing creature.
The octopus? Oh yeah. I'm telling you, man, those suckers came in from on an asteroid and landed. We're like, okay, we're staying. This place is cool. It's got water. We go deep. They'll never bother us. It might capture a few of us, but you know, and the proof. I mean, the pyramids are another thing that, you know, we still don't know what they are. There's theories as to what they could be, but the construction of them in itself is nearly impossible. Even with today's technology, we could not do it with copper and chisels and a bunch of slaves pulling on ropes. It just didn't happen. It couldn't have happened. The same thing with the Sphinx, like I mentioned in our pre-talk. It's got water erosion on it, as if the Nile River ran through it, behind it, and that would have only happened 8,000 years prior to the date of where the Nile River is now. For the Nile River to move that much. So it's a lot older than we even know. And Stonehenge, so we what is that? And not only that, but it's all over the world. It's not like it's just one singular place that has a Stonehenge. There's a Stonehenge here in America. There's Stonehenges all over the country, all over the world. The same thing with pyramids. There's pyramids all over the world, and especially in places like China, where it's like you don't think of pyramids in China, but China has one of the most ancient of pyramids, and the weirdest thing about these pyramids, that one in China, which is the tomb of the oldest emperor, and the one in Chichen Itza in Latin America, is that they both have liquid mercury running underneath them. Oh. And it's like, why? What is up with liquid mercury? First of all, liquid mercury is not something humans can handle or should be handling. But yet in these two pyramids, you have liquid mercury running underneath them like it was part of a machine, and inside of the pyramid in Egypt, they found, residues of zinc and copper on the inside of the queen's chamber, that which shoots out onto a 45-foot shaft where there's a door with another 30-foot shaft that's about 4 or 5 inches wide. And the door has a hook that can only be opened from the outside. With the 45-foot arm, though. So it's like, what is going on with this machine? And my theory is that to me was part of an ancient power grid system, that there was, Tesla was onto something when it comes to using the earth energy. Yes, and I think the pyramids were kind of along that line of what Tesla was trying to do with sharing. Tesla, if you're not familiar with Tesla and the Tesla idea of shared energy, you needed little points, every couple hundred feet to share and move energy, but it was free and harmless to move this energy along. But he was shot down by Edison.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'm gonna do. We talk about the ancient aliens in terms of pyramids, the Sphinx in terms of the past. The same way people talk about religion in the past. Everyone's like, yeah, well, they're all dead. I'm not seeing any proof now. One of the things that I want to get into is most people on the planet right now have not seen an alien. At least they don't know they've seen an alien, I guess.
Right.
What?
It's in the eyes. You got to look in the eyes. I'm just kidding.
How do we know that the aliens, are they still here? How did they get here?
I have a few theories on that. One, a few theories on that in the sense of that we ourselves are genetic mutants of manipulation over time. They have the vested interest in us in that case. Like they created us just like we would if we went to some other planet. We started making these creatures. We would be responsible for them. We would no longer just abandon them. We'd care for them and try to make sure that they evolved in a good way. That's what we are to them. We're kind of like their babies, and so they're caring for us as much as they can without spoon feeding us. And the people, the other is there's I have a theory as well. Admiral Byrd in 1948 was part of Operation High Jump. I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but it was a large expedition to Antarctica where over 30 warships and I believe 10,000 soldiers went to just take a look. But Admiral Byrd reported that he flew his squadron into a large cavern, which opened up into a large city, and their ships were taken down, and he was captured, and he was told that they were not happy with our use of nuclear weapons during the last war, and that we needed to stop doing that and spread the word that we're not the guardians of this planet, that they were the civilization that were here first, and that they feel responsible for this planet. And Admiral Byrd came out saying, forget the Nazis, forget the Russians, we got to worry about saucer invasions from the north of Antarctica and the poles. And they were like, you know, Admiral Byrd, you got to shut up or we're going to put you in an insane asylum. And so he was like, okay, I'm going to shut up about that. And he never spoke about it again.
Now, why did everyone shut him up rather than going down and checking it out?
Well, you know, you kind of got to wonder how long there's been different influences on this planet. You know, why, like we mentioned before, why is there good and evil? You know, why does sometimes people just seem to go against us, even though it's for the betterment of mankind and, you know, it's the quote unquote the right thing to do. It's an obvious choice. Universal health care, why not? But then people can still vote against it. You know, like there's this inherent evil, you know, agenda against mankind. So the powers that be don't want to lose control over the population that they have now, you know. So I think that if the word got out that we're not in control like we think we are, and that, you know, we are just momentary stewards of this planet, and there's another civilization that's actually does own this world more so than we do, we would lose our shit. Our excuse me, we would lose our minds and go insane and yeah, we would just go crazy, you know, and you know, religion would lose all meaning, and you know, the dollars would lose all value, and governments have no control, and you know, all utter chaos. Which is why I think the desensitization, which again is another kind of a clue as to do aliens exist. If you take a look at how we've been desensitized to the idea of aliens since Roswell, for instance. You know, if you asked a child back in the 1940s to draw you an alien, he would draw you some sort of square-looking machine robot thing, you know. And if you ask a kid now to draw you an alien, he'd draw you a gray, you know, alien, more than likely, or some sort of more accurate, you know, lizard-type alien, you know. And that's the other thing too. It's like these, as time goes on and information gets declassified, you know, we're starting to put together pieces of information like the fact that we've had extraterrestrial officers in our military.
Now,
you know,
okay, I need a name, I need a rank, and I need a come on.
I wish I'm not gonna, I don't want to misquote it, but it's Googleable. It can be Googled, but I want to say one of them's name was something like the Mighty Thor, or something along that line of like, that's such a silly name, but like they're aliens. They would pick some sort of like name that we think would be cool, you know? And I'm like, okay, it kind of makes sense if you think about it. But what's his name? The guy who broke into NASA, he was looking for, you know, moon landing stuff. And he is Assange? No, it's not Assange. It might be. Anyway, he's hiding in Russia right now because of what he did to NASA. He broke into the record. He was looking for the fake moon landing stuff, but instead he found all this documentation on these extraterrestrial officers, you know, and he's like, oh, and he leaked that stuff. It's out there. It's Googleable. And it's one of those things too where, you know, I've heard talks given by ex-military who had physical gunfights with aliens on this planet. You know, and there's a mesa out in Arizona what's rumored to be the real Area 51 now, where their alien species are working with our military on different levels of technology and sharing information in exchange for humans.
Okay,
we give them a...
I want to believe. I want to be Fox Mulder. I am still there were like
one of the most shocking things about America that gets me is the amount of missing people that we have in America. I mean, have you ever looked up that number? It's it's about something in, I want to say close to 100,000 a year go missing without a clue.
And they're not just runaways. They're not just
runaways. I mean, they're just missing. And it's like, okay, what is that? And there's reports, and you get into like he said, you know, just these are just, you know, word of mouth reports. But I mean, these people report, you know, to the police that, hey, I was hiking with my buddy and I turned around and he was gone. You know, it's like, what happened to him, you know? And, you know, there's all kinds of theories that go into, there's a program that the government has got involved in where there are American-made UFOs, and they purposely do go out there to scare the people, to cause a ruckus, and abduct people, is the theory,
Now,
and
are the aliens only working with the U.S. or are they working with other countries too?
other countries as well, and it's kind of like a whole UN type of thing, but to deal with the aliens, and it's one of those things where the government, there's many species of alien that are out there. I believe that there's 13 confirmed different species of aliens. There's the grays, there's the reptilian looking alien, there's the praying mantis looking aliens, there's lizard, um, there's angelic 6 foot tall looking alien, and they come from all different parts of the galaxies. Different, there's some from the planet Nibiru,
How do they
which
get here?
how do they get here?
Like we look at light, we go like what? We're like hundreds of years at light speed from the closest next star. And
Yeah,
how do they get here?
we're so baby when it comes to our space travel. It's sad, because like the way they travel isn't through our means of strapping a rocket to your butt, blasting off into space. That's like, oh, what? But that's how we do it. They have its dimensions. They figured out how to fold space and time, and to travel, you know, light years in instances. It's not so much, going from here to here. It's a
More of a tesseract.
yeah. It's kind of like a Stargate. Is the best way to either open up a space, a slice, step right through, and the slice closes up, which is what gets me. There's many Native American legends about that very thing. Portals just opening up and the skinwalkers walking through. If you haven't heard of the legend of the Skinwalker or Skinwalker Ranch, where the legend comes from, it's a legend of the Devil's Punch Bowl, what it's called, where there's rumored to be these portals that just happen to open up and these skinwalkers come through, and they're these large alien type creatures, 6 foot tall, and they steal livestock and disappear, and
Why did they do this? Why did they need livestock?
well, you kind of got to wonder, there's got to be where the legends of the bloodletting comes from, like the ancient Mayans used blood sacrifices to gods. There's a theory out there that some alien species rely on blood to survive, which is kind of spooky. Which is kind of spooky, And again, why our government is working with them and giving them so many amount of our populace. It's like, hey, in exchange for technology and information, we'll let you, in cooperation, we'll let you take a certain amount of our humans.
Was the government allowing them, or are they just taking them? They don't need the government to do this.
I mean, honestly, I don't think they would need our government. If they really just wanted to take us, they would just, take us.
Yeah,
but I think in the vein of diplomacy, working with the creatures that are here, inhabiting, because I mean, we don't know we don't know the full details. We don't know the origin. We only know bits and pieces of what they've been able to been leaked out by people who've been able to escape, and survive, and like one of the most, I saw this guy speak live once, and then, years later he was found strangled to death in his own building with his own, he was in a wheelchair, so he had a cord for his urine bag. He committed suicide by strangling himself with that, which really made a lot of sense to a lot of people. But the reason why he was in a wheelchair was because he was in a firefight, according to him, with other Marines at this base in Mesa, Arizona, where they accidentally went to one of the restricted floors, him and his Marines. And when they got off, there was, from what he described, human bodies and parts and just grossness going on. And because they weren't allowed to be there, the aliens opened fire on them. And he said that he was one of the only survivors, but he didn't survive unscathed, because as the Marine who saved his life pushed him into the elevator, he was hit with a blast that completely severed off his fingers and eviscerated him, but at the same time cauterized the wound, and he had the fingers that looked like he was born that way, but according to him, his fingers were, disintegrated by this alien being. So, I mean, so there's weird stories like that. And it's like, okay, well, he's got the proof, and then he ends up strangled, by his own piss bag. It doesn't make any sense, and if you roll back even further, the creation of the CIA and Dr. Forrester, James Forrestal, excuse me, have you heard of this man?
No.
James Forrestal. He was before the CIA was the CIA, it was called the Majestic 12. And he was one of the top 12. The other guy, Vannevar Bush, Granddaddy Bush.
Of the Bush family, yeah.
Of the Bush family.
So if people wanted to actually, let's say, I haven't decided if the aliens are good or bad yet. They sound really bad right now. But if you want to hang out with the good ones and like go see their planet or learn from their technology or do anything, how do you get in touch with these people? Do they get in touch with you, these aliens?
Now the thing about the good and bad, there's one bad apple doesn't ruin the bunch when it comes to aliens, because I think they're like we've mentioned in the universe, they can't be good without evil. So there's some alien species that haven't evolved to that level of get along in the universe yet. They're the Klingons of the universe, so to speak. They're just so damn hard-nosed. So the majority out there are good. They're out there for good. They're out there for the betterment of, what actually matters, which is the soul. The soul is what moves on from planet to planet, universe, which makes the universe expand. And what we've learned to discover recently, since recovered UFOs and declassification of information has been coming out, Dr. Stephen Greer is one of those who has headed the movement to declassify a lot of the alien stuff and to bring to the people the truth, that their technology is all based off of thought, and that when we recovered their spacecraft, we couldn't get it to work because there's no controls, and they have a little cap that they would wear, which is what controlled the ship. And what Dr. Greer didn't like was that the powers that be were concerned about control and money and weapons, and the majority of the life that is out there isn't about that kind of mentality. And so the way that they can communicate, that he discovered, is through telepathically, is how they talk to people. And so he just created a movement called the Close Encounter 5, CE5. It's actually an app you can download. I'm totally plugging him. I have no affiliation with him whatsoever, just so you know that. But it's not, you don't even need the app. You can just discover what the movement is about. There's a documentary called Close Encounters 5, and there's also another documentary I recommend called Unacknowledged. Both are great sources of information as to the good aliens and the good that is out there, that we as humans have to do the work first in order for us to really be able to make that contact on a global scale. But individually, with the CE5 movement, groups of people have been starting to make contact with actual alien entities.
Hey, hold on, right there.
Yeah.
How, in other words, if I called CE5 or got in touch with them, and I go, okay, this group here has had contact with the lizard people, what will they show me that says, here's the lizard people, here's what we've learned from them, here's what they've done for us? And then I'd go like, holy crap, I'm going to believe because I've seen the lizard people technology. What is there?
I wish it was that exact, but it's not. From what I've understand, there is one person, because let me explain actually kind of what goes on. I mean, with the CE5 movement, it's these groups of individuals like myself who believe in extraterrestrial life, and it's out there, and it wants to communicate with us. The power of, as we've been able to discover with shared prayer or meditation,
Yes.
it multiplies, for some cosmic reason. So these groups of people are getting together in remote places and even in downtown places. But the idea is to concentrate their energy and using these techniques that CE5 lays down, because they're very specific. These aliens aren't just popping in to anybody who's like, hey, alien, no. It's very much like, this is me. I'm in California. I'm calling out to whoever's listening. I want to make contact with these people. And it's a constant meditation, like a deep meditation, but it's also guiding them from space into the atmosphere above America, over California, over Los Angeles County, coming down to my building. And it's like, it takes that kind of intense focus, constantly feeding them the line to feed them in. And people have been capturing video, photographic proof. And one gentleman even during this deep meditation was having a conversation with aliens. And during this conversation was like, hey, I'm deaf. Can you do something about my hearing, please? The next morning he woke up, perfect hearing. And they talked to this guy.
On video or what?
What's that? I'm sorry?
This is one we captured on video, or? This
is a man that they captured him on video. They captured the energy behind him during this time that he was actually praying and or meditating. And the next morning, they had him on this documentary. I think it's the Close Encounter 5 documentary. And I started tearing up when he was telling his story. I'm like, oh my God, but he's tearing up. He's like, I still can't believe that happened. It's like, I woke up and I just could hear. And he said he had been deaf since he was like 5 years old. And so it was one of those things where, that's physical proof right there, of someone being touched.
That's where I talked about at the very beginning, the overlap between the different religions and things and the aliens. So I could talk to you for another few hours here, and we've got people who've been hanging on since the beginning of the show just watching.
We got time.
Let's see if we can't get you back another time. We're going to bring up some of these videos and things. I do want people to get in touch with you and be able to ask you questions and learn more about this. I will be more back in touch with you to find out more.
It's such a vast world of knowledge, and it's very overwhelming if you take it all in at once. Like anything. Like I've mentioned during our warm up, was the Ancient Alien show is a great source to go to for baby steps of information. But then once you feel comfortable, the Unacknowledged and the Close Encounters 5 documentaries by Dr. Stephen Greer are fantastic sources of information as to where our future lies, with, when it comes to space and aliens and our existence. But yeah, I would love to come back and talk to you again about more and get into specifics. There's so many individual stories themselves. We can talk about how Bigfoot's an alien.
We'll talk about all that stuff. I am just fascinated by it. If nothing else, I'm gonna start right here. We'll trademark the Scully scale on seasons 1 through 11. I'm on Scully. Probably scale season 4 or 5. I'm still questioning.
I highly recommend visiting some UFO hotspots and looking up. Honestly, so many of us don't look up enough, and we'd be surprised what happens when you look up and just look at the stars, and realize it's not all stars and satellites that are moving around up there.
Look up to or up or something like that.
Look up.
That was a great movie.
Yeah, it was.
All right, dude. Thank you so much for being on. This has been just
absolutely
a conversation. We will definitely get you back on again. We're gonna do
absolutely so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Take care.